There comes a moment when a person notices something unsettling. Life is moving, but not necessarily advancing. Days pass, phases change, responsibilities grow, and yet the inner feeling is repetition. It's not complete stagnation. It's motion without direction, walking a lot and arriving at the same place. For centuries, the Triskele has been seen as a beautiful, dynamic, almost decorative symbol. 3 arms or legs in rotation, suggesting fluidity and continuity. But that surface reading misses a central point. The Triskele never spoke of time as something that simply passes. It spoke of time as something that is chosen. Past, present, and future are not separate phases. They are active forces competing for command over decision. Ancient civilizations knew something essential. Time doesn't carry anyone forward. It only moves. What defines direction is consciousness in the now. When that consciousness withdraws, the past takes over. When fear dominates, the future rules. The Triskele was born precisely to make this conflict visible, not as distant philosophy, but as a practical map of a mind in motion. And perhaps the most uncomfortable question isn't where time is going, but who is deciding the movement of your life at this exact moment. The Triskele doesn't speak of time. It speaks of direction for a long time. The Triskele was presented as a symbol of time, past, present, and future spinning in harmony. A beautiful explanation, but an incomplete one. The Triskele never existed to describe the passage of time. It exists to show what happens when someone moves, or fails to move, by choice. The spirals don't travel in a straight line. They rotate, and rotation always speaks of direction, not merely time. Ancient cultures understood something fundamental. Time doesn't push, guide, or decide. It only reveals. The Triskele shows that the past doesn't disappear. The future isn't distant, and the present is not neutral. Everything happens simultaneously within the human mind. Each spiral represents an active force. What has already been lived, what is being felt now, and what begins to form from decisions made or avoided. That's why the symbol becomes unsettling when observed closely. It suggests there is no being trapped in time, only being trapped in indecision. When someone doesn't choose, doesn't change course, and doesn't break patterns, life keeps spinning in the same place. The Triskele doesn't point to a clock. It points to inner movement. And it leaves a question hanging in the air. If time isn't a prison, what truly keeps people stuck? Where the Triskele was born, stone, sky, and ancient consciousness. The earliest records of the Triskele date back to around 3200 BCE. In the Neolithic period, carved into the stones of Newgrange, Ireland, a megalithic complex older than the pyramids of Egypt. The triple spirals appear aligned with solstices and solar cycles, making it clear that the symbol arose from observing natural time, not from religion or dogma. It was a tool for understanding the movement of reality. In that ancient context, there was no separation between sky, earth, and consciousness. Everything was flow. The Triskele emerges as a visual representation of this continuous movement. 3 spirals, 3 arms, or 3 legs, always rotating around a single center. They don't indicate fixed stages, but simultaneous forces in action, coexisting and influencing one another at all times. Centuries later, the symbol reappears across different European cultures, especially among pre-Celtic and Celtic peoples, associated with triads such as life, death, and renewal, or land, sea, and sky. In the Mediterranean, in places like Sicily and the Isle of Man, it takes the explicit form of 3 human legs in rotation, stamped on coins and heraldry. The message is direct. Those who don't move with awareness keep spinning without leaving the spot. The word Triskele itself comes from the Greek Triskele, meaning 3 legs, yet the principle remains the same in every variation, arms, spirals, or legs. The symbol was never mystical in the modern sense. It was practical, teaching that time doesn't push anyone forward, that life isn't linear, and that movement without direction becomes repetition. And when this becomes clear, an inevitable question arises. If the symbol explained the flow of life, why does it describe the workings of the human mind so precisely? The Triskele is a map of time, past, present, and future in motion. The Triskele reveals its deepest layer when it stops being seen as an ancient ornament and becomes understood as a map of lived time. Ancient civilizations grasp something that has nearly been lost today. Time doesn't propel anyone forward. It simply responds to the movement of consciousness. Past, present, and future were not viewed as separate stages, but as active forces that coexist and influence each other constantly. In the symbol, the three spirals rotate simultaneously. None begins first, none ends last. The past remains alive as memory, habit, and pattern. The future already acts as expectation, fear, or intention, and the present is the only point where decision truly occurs. The Triskele shows that time itself does not imprison. What imprisons is the absence of conscious choice in the now. When someone lives trapped in the past, one spiral dominates the motion. When they live only projecting into the future, another takes control. The imbalance isn't in time, but in the inner relationship with it. The center of the Triskele represents precisely this, the point of presence where movement can be chosen. Without an active center, life doesn't advance. It merely spins, repeating cycles with different names. This reading turns the Triskele into a silent warning. It doesn't speak of destiny. It speaks of decision. It doesn't promise future liberation. It points to present responsibility. Time only becomes a prison when consciousness abdicates choice. And when that realization settles in, an unavoidable question emerges. Who is deciding the movement of your life right now, you or the cycles repeating on their own? When there is no decision, there is drift, movement without choice. The Triskele offers a clear warning. When observed honestly, movement always exists. The question was never whether life will move, but how it moves. When conscious decision doesn't occupy the center, movement happens by inertia. The person doesn't choose, they are carried. Routines form, responses repeat. Paths remain not because they make sense, but because they were never questioned. This is the point where time begins to feel like a prison. Not because it is cruel, but because movement has stopped being deliberate. The past becomes automatic pattern. The future turns into constant anxiety. And the present empties out, reduced to execution. The Triskele shows that without choice in the now, the spirals keep turning, but they don't advance. They simply keep the body in motion while consciousness steps away. The symbol doesn't accuse, threaten, or promise salvation. It reveals a quiet choice made every day. Occupy the center or be carried by the edges. Deciding isn't about controlling everything. It's about being present enough to interrupt the drift. Small conscious decisions already shift the direction of the spin. It's not rupture, it's realignment. That's why the Triskele was never about speed, progress, or final destiny. It has always spoken of movement with intention. When intention is absent, time governs. When it returns, time obeys. And this insight closes the symbol with a simple, uncomfortable truth. Either you decide the movement or you live spinning inside it. After understanding the Triskele, time stops feeling like an invisible enemy. It also stops being an excuse. The symbol reveals something few people enjoy facing. The past doesn't imprison. The future doesn't pull. The present decides. When someone repeats the same patterns, it isn't because time was cruel. It's because the decision never changed. The Triskele shows that movement isn't automatic displacement. It is conscious choice in the face of what was, what is, and what could be. That's why it unsettles. Because it returns responsibility. It shows that advancing isn't accelerating. And that being stuck isn't a lack of opportunity. It's the absence of inner direction. The Triskele doesn't promise control over time. It exposes something more subtle. Those who don't decide consciously end up living in rotation, spinning between past and future, without ever inhabiting the present. And perhaps the final question isn't about the time you lost, but about which direction you've been choosing to repeat. Here, symbols don't exist to decorate history. They exist to reveal how the mind moves, and who, in fact, is deciding the path.